Good morning, students. This is our final update for the week. Today is an important day. Today is May 14th. What does that mean? The first day we were out of school was March 14th. The last day we were together was March 13th. So the first day we started being apart was exactly 2 months ago today. And wow, how fast 2 months can go. So, what are we doing today? We're going to learn about writing a historical context to our research paper. We did the abstract, maybe like 8 of you turned in the abstract in both classes combined. We're going to learn how to write a historical context. But first, let's do our customary shout outs. In 5th period, 2 people participated. Thank you, David, and thank you, Gabriela. Now let's go over to 2nd. Now we have 8 people participating. Let's take a look at who these people were. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Thais. Thank you, Christian. And thank you, Ethel. So, what are we going to be doing when it comes to a historical context? First, let's look at something that maybe you're familiar with. Wikipedia. So, I typed in just about anything. In this case, I wanted to know more about public education in the United States to use as an example of how Wikipedia sets up their articles. So they give you kind of an overview at the beginning. This is like your abstract. Then they give you your contents, right? And what do they start with? Boom. In the table of contents, they start with a history. So check it out. They've divided the history of, in this case, public education into 3 centuries: the 19th century, the 20th century, and what we are living in now, the 21st century, right? And then they go into statistics. That's your findings section. We're going to talk about that one next week. So they divided it into 3 categories: 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, because that's how old public education is in the United States, pretty much from the 1800s to the present. If you want to get even more in depth, they have an entire article specifically on the history of education in the United States. And when you get into the table of contents, you'll notice they have colonial era, federal era, and then they get to the 20th century. The 20th century is subdivided. Maybe some of you who are taking AP U.S. history have learned about some of these things. So let's go back to our assignment. So you click on where it says research paper part 2, historical context, rough draft. Clicky. And look at what we have here. We have got a link and we have the instructional checklist. So let's look at the link. How to write a historical essay. Well, you're not going to write an entire essay. You're going to write a section of an essay. Your research essay is going to have these elements. So, introduce what your topic is. It's going to be easier because you introduce it in your abstract. So, a sentence or so. Sentences that explains the historical nature of your question. Remember, you all asked a question. That was the main comment that I put on those of you who wrote your abstract. Some of you forgot to emphasize directly your question. Then explain the next paragraph. Explain the historical context of your historical question. What's happening and what makes your question important, right? You want to establish a foundation for your exploration of this subject as evidenced by your question. And then supporting paragraphs. Basic small paragraphs that include a topic sentence to discuss specifically a period of time, quotes from your research if you found any, right, that explain how the topic has unfolded, right? Make sure that you have more than one supporting paragraph, but the process is the same. Remember, you're judging the author's reliability. We spent a lot of time in class before we left discussing what made someone reliable. That's the ethos part of persuasion. Make sure you have a rebuttal paragraph that discusses some of the points, but finds a way to select the strongest reason, as it says here, that goes against your argument, right? What if if you're doing something on education and you're saying that education, public education, has value? Well, what would it mean if someone said that public education had no value, right? There must be some reasons to support that. And then conclude by recapping a little bit of the history and how public opinion has evolved. Check out the checklist. I try to make it as simple as possible. So, before turning to this section, make sure it has all the following: a centered proper heading, historical context. Then, what we just went over, a discussion of the history of the topic, dates, events, and significance in chronological order. Chronological order means time order. Go from the earliest reports about your topic to the most current, and discuss how popular opinion on the topic has evolved. How has it changed? Have people started to think differently about things that they used to think about in the past? That happens quite a bit. At least 2, maybe up to 3 full pages of description and discussion. You want to make sure that you bring a lot of information out. This isn't your finding section, so you're not going to go over your sources. We're going to do that next week, and I'll explain to you how we're going to do that. Make sure, as usual, you have your last name and the page number up here. Basics that we went over the other day. You want to make sure you have transitions between paragraphs that are effective to connect your ideas. Have a clear topic sentence for each paragraph we just went over, and a clear closing sentence. Use quotes and cite your sources. You can quote all day long as you say where it came from. If you don't quote and you don't say where it came from, then you're plagiarizing, and that's going to get you a 0, because you got to learn not to do that. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please let me know about that. So that is due on Saturday. I was going to make it due Friday. Initially, that's when it was. It was actually due Thursday. But for some of you, you won't see this until Friday. So I made that adaptation so that all of us can turn it in on by Saturday. But turn it in Friday as if it was your blog, or as if it was Research Friday. Turn it in Friday. You don't have to worry about doing any homework on the weekend, although almost every day does seem like a weekend nowadays. I have another special puzzle that has to do with what we are writing about. It's only 24 pieces. My recommendation: start with this puzzle, get yourself in the solving problems zone, and then tackle writing your research paper's historical context section. All right, everybody. Miss you. Take care.